So far, the summer transfer window has looked pretty bleak for Bournemouth. Most of their key players are being linked to other clubs, but however, the Cherries do appear to be closing in on their first signing of the summer. So here is what you need to know about Bournemouth's newest recruit. Now, the name Adrien Truffert might not ring a bell with many Bournemouth fans. However, this is a player that at 23 has captained his club Rennes in Liga, having come through the academy there. Born in Belgium, he's decided to represent France, has just the one cap at senior level, but has represented them throughout junior international levels, also picking up a silver medal at the 2024 Olympic Games. He's a player that's received a lot of interest over the years. Liverpool, West Ham, Nottingham Forest, and most recently it was Marseille that were perhaps showing tentative interest. But it was Bournemouth that were able to get this deal over the line. And here is why I think you should be excited about this signing. See, it's no secret that Bournemouth have been in the market for a new left-back. Milos Kerkez seems to be departing this summer, so it will be a straight swap with Truffert coming in and taking his spot. Julio Soler is also at the club. He came in January, deputising for Milos Kerkez, played just 9 minutes of Premier League football, spread over 3 appearances. 2 starts in the Cup for Bournemouth. The young Argentinian has also recently captained the Argentinian junior international side. However, it looks as though Truffert is going to come in and be that number 1 left back. Soler is a top talent, make no mistake about that. Top European clubs were chasing his signature. It was Bournemouth that, of course, were able to get it over the line. It will be interesting to see what they do with the young Argentine this season. He played a deputising role last season, and it does look like if he were to stay around that he'd be set to do that again this season. Whether he could go on loan is yet to be seen. I'm sure there would be interest. He's a young, dynamic, strong, physical player. However, just not quite at the physical levels needed for the Premier League yet. But back to Truffert. Now, I spent a fair bit of time watching his clips, highlights, game footage, anything I could to try and build a general perception to share with you about what we can expect from Truffert at Dean Court next season. Whilst watching those clips, I wrote down 3 words which I think properly describe what this fullback is all about, and that being athletic, dynamic, and creative. Now, if I were to tell you those 3 words without telling you which player I was describing, you wouldn't be mistaken to think that those words pretty accurately depicted Milos Kerkez. However, those are the words that I have for Truffert, which probably shows the similarities between the 2 players. Similar to Kerkez, Truffert can play further forwards as a wide midfielder in a back 3. He has done that quite a few times for Rennes. Kerkez, of course, having that role in the Hungarian national team. So Truffert isn't a player that is scared to get forwards and really impact the team in the attacking third. Another thing that really impressed me when watching Truffert was his defensive work rate, and that is something which I think could be really valuable for Andoni Iraola at Bournemouth. Now, under the Spaniard, Bournemouth play a very front foot attacking, free-flowing style of play. That has massive upside, but also can be found out defensively. Now, Truffert, given his defensive work rate, could mitigate that threat down the right flank in the forthcoming season. He's quick, athletic, able to get back into position quickly, and it's something which, as I say, I do think could be really useful for Bournemouth. Truffert and Kerkez both love to cross the ball. It's a trademark of their game and something which they both are really good at. However, what I think you will notice when watching Truffert is he crosses it very differently to Milos Kerkez. I think Kerkez often goes for power over placement. You see a sort of almost run-up when he goes to cross the ball, that being Kerkez. He sort of really tries to put his foot through it, and sometimes they can go way beyond the box and out of play. What I think you'll notice with Truffert is they have a little bit more curl on his left foot. They're able to really be sort of lofted into the box. And given that Evanilson is the striker that those would most likely be being delivered to, it makes for a really promising connection between Evanilson and Truffert. But also you have the likes of Dango Ouattara, Semenyo, big physical presences, which I think could really benefit from Truffert's crossing. Now, despite being 5'7", Truffert really does dominate in the air. And I think it's a case for him of having to find a way to do that, because he won't match certain players in terms of height. However, in defensive positioning, he does excel. He's able to get himself into position nice and early, so he has a clean jump and a clean clearance in his headers. His astute defensive positioning is something which I think makes him a really well-rounded player and one that is all-encompassing in both defence and attack. Looking at Truffert's heat map, I think it says it all really. You can see that the majority of his play is done down the left flank. However, there is a fair bit of shading in both boxes, which shows he can be very active at both ends of the pitch. On corners as well, you can see those two concentrated red dots in both attacking corner spots. So I think this really does demonstrate that Truffert can be really impactful at both ends of the pitch for Bournemouth. It is worth actually looking at how Iraola will utilise Truffert for his Bournemouth side. It looks to be a pretty straight swap with Milos Kerkez. Kerkez obviously was given a very free role under Iraola, often spearheading attacks by playing 1-2s with the midfield or the wingers, often looking to get outside and deliver a cross or hit the byline. Kerkez was also not afraid to make runs inside to create space on the outside. Truffert often likes to be the man to take the outside route to get a cross in with his left foot, and I think that is something we can grow to expect at Bournemouth. However, it is also worth looking at how he will set up defensively. There is no current left centre-back option other than Marcos Senesi at Bournemouth, and that will probably be fixed in the summer window. Bournemouth are looking at centre-back targets, so Truffert could have a left centre-back next to him that is also new to the club. It could even be someone from Liga. Bournemouth have been linked to Nathan Zeze, a French centre-back, so there could be a nice link there with Adrien Truffert. Truffert did have a great 2024-25 season for Rennes. He notched 2 goals and 2 assists in 33 appearances, notching 2,755 minutes, and rather impressively, only picking up 3 yellows in that time. So that could be good news for Bournemouth. I think it's something which Milos Kerkez, in his first season especially, he was rather erratic, and it took about a year worth of development to really settle him down a bit so he wasn't being so rash in his challenging. Truffert, having played the majority of the minutes in Liga, only picking up 3 yellows is sure to be a good sign for Bournemouth. There are already 2 French players contracted to Bournemouth, one being Eli Junior Kroupi. Having been bought by Bournemouth from sister club Lorient in January, he spent the rest of the season on loan in the French second tier, and in the French first tier there's Romain Fevre spending the season on loan at Brest. So those 2 players really could help Truffert settle. There are also 2 French speakers in Dango Ouattara and Hamad Traore. It's unsure as to how many of those 4 players will still be included in the Bournemouth squad, whether there's loan moves in the pipeline or permanent deals. However, there are plenty of options to help Truffert settle into life on the south coast. I think it's worth taking some time to analyse the similarities and differences between Truffert and Milos Kerkez. Now, when looking at attacking output, Truffert does come out on top. When looking at non-penalty expected goals and assists, Truffert boasts better numbers than Kerkez, showing his attacking output in theory to be superior. However, it is worth noting that Truffert has played as a wide midfielder / wing-back at Rennes in a back 3 this season, which could slightly skew those stats. However, it is impressive nonetheless. When looking at passing stats too, Truffert also comes out on top, averaging more passes per 90 and a 10% higher long pass completion percentage. When looking at long passes, it is something which is actually really important to Iraola's style of play. Evan Nilsson makes some really intelligent runs in behind, and you also have great physical presences out wide, such as Dango Ouattara and Antoine Semenyo, who are really able to look after a ball when it's sent long to them. As previously mentioned, both players are really hailed for their crossing. However, it is Truffert that comes out on top. Truffert actually posts more crosses per 90, averaging nearly 5, while Kerkez sits at 3.8. Both of these players clearly love to get their crosses into the box, and it's something which, as I've mentioned previously, we can really expect from Truffert in the red and black of Bournemouth. Milos Kerkez has quite rightfully received a lot of praise this season for cleaning up his defensive act and becoming a much more stable and reliable head as a part of that back 4 that under Iraola this season have been so successful, although it is Truffert that posts better defensive numbers. Truffert wins 0.48 more tackles per 90 than Kerkez, and also when it comes to one-on-one defending, Truffert excels in that too. 1.05 dribblers tackled to Kerkez's 0.65. Now this is a stat that actually is really representative of why Truffert can be so useful in the Premier League. In England's top flight, there are a lot of tricky wingers that love to take fullbacks on, and it's something which Truffert does apparently seem to be able to handle pretty well indeed. If I had to pick out one single stat which really encapsulates as a whole why Truffert can fit this Iraola style of football so well, it would be when looking at tackles won in the final third. Now Truffert doubles the tally of Kerkez when looking at tackles won in the final third per 90. This is something which I think Iraola could really harness. We know that at Bournemouth they like to play a really front foot attacking style of play. Winning the ball high up the pitch suits that down to a T, and therefore it's something which I think Truffert could really enhance at Bournemouth. So in conclusion, it does look like Bournemouth are getting a really high quality player to come in and replace one of their standouts from the season just gone. Kerkez moving to Liverpool for around 45 million, and Bournemouth will sign Truffert for under 20. It does showcase real value and why, again, Bournemouth's recruitment team have excelled. Truffert will come in with a lot of hunger, ambition. So far his career path captaining Rennes at just 23 does show that he can be a real leader and a character that Iraola can rely on, both in this next coming season and beyond. With all of this being said, I really do hope you enjoyed this video, and I'm excited to hear your thoughts. Let me know down below how important you think Truffert will be to Bournemouth and how excited you are by this potential signing. Thank you so much for watching. I'll see you next time. Bye bye.